Hello, my name is Robert J. Arnold, and welcome to the first installment of the WarFox online Bagua training program. Now, all of the movements in this video are from the Shinju Jinyuan Bagua Association, taught to me by my master, Wu Guojiang. But to keep it simple and make it easy to say, we'll just call it WarFox Bagua. Now, as I said before, the first 100 people to leave comments and questions will have free access to this video. What free access entails is that you have created the framework. So thank you very much for your participation, because all of these next videos are based on the comments and questions that you have personally and that you are most concerned about for your training. In the first video, I only include the top 3 most repeated questions, and those will be used as a beginning. So I call that the step to power video, which means it will be focused on footwork and first in training and strengthening, and as it continues it will slowly move to different practices and then how it's applied in applications. Now the videos that come after that will be a series, as I said before, which will include 24 extra videos, additional videos, that I will call the advanced training program. If you are interested in that advanced training program, then please contact me at warriorfox@gmail.com. That's warriorfox@gmail.com. If you are just satisfied with this first video, well, thank you very much for watching. Watch it as many times as you need, and it's my honor to be able to help pass this on to the next generation. Thank you. Step to Power is a video series or response to the most often asked questions related to Bagua. In time, all questions of the survey will be attended to, but the most repeated questions will be answered first. To address all levels of learners, this video will start with basic movements and progress into advanced practices. Thank you very much for your help in the creation of this program. Being that this is a footwork video, it's going to be priority to make sure we first warm up our ankles and our knees and our hips. And we're going to do some basics here. First, just some ankle rotations here from the inside to the outside. Taking your time, not doing any jarring motions or placing the weight on, but just small circles, helping the body get prepared. And then we reverse the direction. All right, you bring it up onto the toe, keeping the heel off the ground, and letting the leg, the upper part of the leg, just do the rotation. This also will help the knees prepare as well. Then we switch and we do it onto the other side. This is not the most exciting part of Kung Fu, but it may be the most important. Without a warm-up, as you begin to age, well, you're just working against yourself. And by continually practicing these motions, you'll be surprised on how much it helps to continue to feel youthful. Now we're rocking back and forth on the ankles. It's very important to be slow on this. And soon we're going to raise our hands, making our hands go in the opposite direction of our feet. There we go. Just to help us keep our balance. We'll sway side to side just like a tree in the breeze, taking your time. Now as we rock one side to the other, it's important not to give it any jerking or sudden movements. Just slowly giving it a nice stretch on the sides, kind of help the ligaments warm up and prepare for the exercises. You can really avoid a lot of knee problems by doing these simple exercises here. Just sink your weight, place your hands on firmly, and then you begin to rotate in small circles. Once again, no jerking motions, but first you're just rotating from one direction, so you can go clockwise first or counterclockwise, however you want.
I'll generally rotate maybe about 8 to 10 times before I switch directions. And as you're doing this, make sure that you really are searching for any discomfort. This is basically the way that your body can talk to you. If something is out of place, if something feels unnatural, you can feel that now. If there's any sharp pain, you can really figure out how to get to it and maybe how not to get to it, how to avoid it. Now we're working from inside to outside. All right. You see, and you just want to have a natural motion as your knees go from inward to outward. Don't press them too far. Try to keep your feet together. But you see my feet, they still stay dexterous as I move. So you don't really want to be like a statue while you're doing any of these things. We must stay natural with motion. Now we're going from the outside to the inside. Almost as if we were clapping our hands here. Great. Here we spread our legs to about a shoulder's width, a little bit more than that. And we're going to do some figure eights with the knees. So we turn inward, and then we turn to the other one. So as one goes outward, the other one goes inward. We're going to try to keep our thighs from spreading too far apart. We're going to make sure that our feet are both pointing forward with all of these exercises here. And we're just going to circle inward and circle outward. Takes a little time and coordination, but this is really the beginning stages to understanding how coiling will work, which will be a very important practice later on. And of course, with all exercises, once you do it one direction, you always want to make sure you do it the other direction. So start doing your figure eights now on the other side. This motion here is actually the seventh motion of the 8 brocades, if you've heard of that before. But first we just turn our weight, right, almost to like what we call like a gongbu, or almost a long stance. You slowly lower yourself, turn, push with the feet to the other side, raise back up, and center again. And then we push in the other direction. Make sure the feet turn first. Lower yourself, turn. You don't want your head to droop, but you do want to kind of swing your body around. And now push in the next direction again. Make sure you're leading with the legs so you can really feel that pressure in the hips. Feel like your hips are pulling your whole body around. Moving one direction into the next. And this will really start to warm up the legs. You may be able to feel some heat coming into the thighs after a while here by pushing one direction to the next. You don't have to go too fast, but you should be able to, once you start warming up, feel a little bit of thrust within there. You should be able to at least sense the power that's in this movement. It's all about developing that leg strength. For this healing step, first we want to center ourselves, drop our weight, keep our thighs close together here. Weight is in the back. I slowly shift it forward. As I raise my hands up, I raise my leg, all in one motion. Extend my energy all the way out to the fingertips and sink as I pull myself forward, slowly shifting the weight to the other side, to the other leg. I repeat. You want to keep your elbows in. You'll see how my wrist, the energy slowly extends from the wrists into the fingers, back down. It becomes important here to start coordinating your breathing with your motion. So here you want to be breathing in. And once you get to this point, extend and breathing out. One slow exhale. Once you get back to your stomach and trace your hands on the inside, you begin breathing in again. And this motion should continue this way as fast as the pace of your breath. This is very important for the healing energies to really start to extend and flow throughout your body. You may not feel it yet, but the effects are already taking place. Now you can do this motion as a good warm-up, as I usually do. Or you can actually do this movement for as long as a mile. You can really just make it into a good workout that works the entire body out, but it doesn't cause any stress or any strain. This is one of the movements from the Hsinchu Bagua Association. It's called the Liang Yi, and it's or they're translated into the two principles. And it's very good for healing purposes. You can really get into this exercise quite deeply, and it's good for the entire body and for all ages. Now we close out here, bring our hands to the center, slowly raise up our weight, exhale as we drop our hands and stand tall. First, for the half step, we sink our weight. Right, so the weight's on the heel there. And we keep our weight in the back as we move forward, keep the back straight. And we push from the back leg. And other times we can even do a small pull with the lead leg. So when you go forward, the front leg raises up. When we go backward, the back leg first raises up. We'll see that in a second. It's important to watch your spacing on this step. You don't want to get your feet too close together because it's make you easy to lose balance. And you don't want to stand, the important thing is you don't want to stand tall in the middle. You want to keep your body basically at the same height as you're moving both backwards and forwards. We switch legs, weight still in the back. And it's important that even when you push, first we're doing soft steps, but when you explode, you want to make sure that there's about a foot between your 2 feet, right? And sometimes a foot and a half. It really depends on the strike or the technique that you're using. Now, once you get comfortable, it's good to do it repetitiously. If you ever want to use it for combat, you got to be able to do it fluently, but staying low. The point of staying low is that if you're dealing with somebody who wants to shoot in or grapple, already being low makes it much easier to deal with their movement. Here we're doing the T step. And the reason it's called a T-step is because you make the shape of a T as you step out to a 45-degree angle. So there my weight comes down to the middle and I turn and shift it to the other foot. Once again I step, 45-degree angle pointing forward, and turn with the waist, moving in the next direction. I'm using the line to make sure that I'm always staying centered as I go back and forth. It can be really helpful. Otherwise you're not doing the right angles, then it can be really ineffective stepping. There we go. So going forward, step and turn. And you should really feel that as you make that step, your waist is getting extra force. So the whole purpose of the step is that you turn to your opponent's side with more force than you would have had if you hadn't stepped. So the step is to gain power. And you also put him at a disadvantage with your ankle when you do it at the right time. All right, turning around, keeping the weight down. No matter what step you're doing, you want to always keep that weight in the back. Unless we're doing a long step. Here we close out, hands up, and down. Now we're doing the step backwards, T-step. Same principle. Back leg goes back, step in a 45-degree angle, turn. Once again, back leg first steps back, turn in a 45-degree angle. Using this line can help you stay oriented so you don't get lost. And just as going backwards or forwards, you should feel yourself gaining more force. So it allows for a good opportunity to strike or to even do a break depending on what your technique is. Now we're going backwards, turning around, turn and step. The front foot is just barely lightly touching the center there. It allows for more options. Now we're just stepping, but this movement can be used also as a trick. For Bagua, we're going to start with a horse stance. Turn at the hip, and it pulls the leg around, and then step, straighten. So both feet are pointing in the same direction. This is very important that you do not turn with the knee. It must be the hip The hip turns the entire leg up from the thigh. And so when you turn in, it's like your whole body is being pulled into the appropriate position. So now we're just moving from one horse stance to the next. Keep the energy on your knees more inward than outward, so you don't put any strain on them. And turn, adjust, turn, adjust. It's a very explosive step, also a very effective trip or lower body attacks. And now we're doing ko, which is the reverse. So first you turn the foot in towards you and turn around. Turn in towards you along that line. Try to keep it straight. But your feet have got to be fluid. So as you're pulling, try not to be like a robot. Reality is that if your feet are not lively, you're not going to be able to do anything effectively. So we want to be grounded, but we also want to make sure that our feet never lose their fluency of action. What we do is what my master says, we take a lot of steps in between steps. And this is different than other internal arts. Here's the zigzag step. So first we sink our weight, and we're going to use a spear hand. So the foot turns in an angle. We bring the weight forward. And as it goes forward, it pushes from the hips all the way into the fingertips. The fingertips pointed about the nose or mouth level. So we extend that into what we call gongbu, or long stance. First you parry, and then extend. Now this parry is very important that you realize that it is the legs that lead the body and the body that leads the hands. So you should not feel that you're pulling with your hands at any point in this motion. It should all feel like it's the twist and untwist in your hips that extend this technique. So low parry, and then extend to the bridge of the nose. You can also do this to the eye level. Low parry, and extend. You see, this is now becoming a combination of steps, because first we do a Bagua outside, keep the weight low, extend outward. When we turn around, we just extend one hand, drop the weight, follow it back, and now we change and extend. So each one of these is always going in a 45-degree angle. 45 degrees one way, and then the next way. And this is why we call it a zigzag step. In actuality, you wipe the danger out of the way that's in front, whether it's an attack or maybe it's somebody's head who's trying to tackle you. After moving it, you can crash into it with the shoulder and knock it to the side. Now do the step a little more fluently. Practice all the movements first slowly until you get comfortable. When you do, then you should really practice doing it at least a natural pace. And a natural pace is going to be kind of fast because you're stepping. You should be able to do this at a running speed. And I recommend doing this for long periods of time. I made all my students do this for 1 mile. This is the zigzag step going backwards. So we do the same thing. First we step back, wipe the danger out of the way, and use the hips to extend that motion. The first step retreats, so it just barely misses us. Maybe it was a low kick. Step out of the way of that danger, and then come back and retaliate. So as we're escaping, we're still attacking. On the way out, and attack. As you step back too, I know some people are always flat-footed. Not in our lineage. We'll put the toe down sometimes and then sink it into the heel. Just as other times we'll sink from the heel into the toe. So from the front, wipe it to one side. It's also important to keep that 45-degree angle. That way you cut him off and you intercept his energy. You don't want to crash directly into it. You want to spiral it off your body. So wipe it to the next side and extend. Of course, all of these practices are, right now you're seeing, or would be against a lower attack. But you can do these against a higher attack, which you'll see later on in the video. We'll do different variations of movements. Good, same thing. Here's the turnaround coming up here soon. So you just step back one, extend, and always be following your hand or leading it with your eyes. You step back and extend, and feel that unroll from within the hips. And this should be a very comfortable step. It shouldn't feel like an advanced technique, even though every technique becomes progressively more complex because it's a combination of basics. So just practice the basics and all of these movements will get better. Here is the multi-step. So first we're going to do this one with no hands. First step, 45-degree angle, turn just like a T-step, but continue walking forward into a gong bu, another long stance. Step into a small T-step, continue walking forward, cut off your opponent's pathway, step, and walk. So you can do this with 3 steps, or 5 or 7 steps, or 9 and so on. So when we count it, the first one here is 1, 2, 3, and extend. Turning again, turning around, just changing the weight. And I'll walk again, 1, 2, 3, and extend. Do your best to focus on that 45-degree angle. 1, 2, 3, extend. Now with the hands, we wipe the danger, put the weight in the back, and as we step, we extend that spear hand. On the expiration, block. Now move the danger and step through the danger. Lower block, it protects the lower part, or if you raise the elbow, it's a face block. 2, turn, and extend. Make sure the hands are very close to each other as they glide past, because it also simulates a break practice, an elbow break. And once you start to get comfortable, keep the weight lower, but relax the step. Turn around, dropping your weight, and just extend right away. And then turn 1, T-step, 2, 3, extend. There we go, now doing it more fluidly. Eventually you'll see all of these steps are actually only one step. When you start moving, you should have all of the steps so downloaded in your mind that it doesn't feel like a difference to go between the T-step to the kobu to the multi-step to the back step, the reverse step. All these steps have to be done thousands and thousands of times. Now for the backwards multi-step, we're going to do it with no hands first. Step and turn through and continue to walk in that direction. First you turn the kobu, step through, and then continue to walk in a straight line in that direction. We're still counting in 3s here. Do it with the spear hand because it actually makes it a little easier. As you step, extend that hand, step back, and your hands slowly extend as you walk through. So turn 1, 2, 3 as you extend. Turn again, we'll see it from the side here soon. 1, 2, 3. Turn from the side, 1, 2, 3. So you're just walking away from your opponent with a slight pivot. So you pivot and walk away in a straight line. Pivot, walk away in a straight line. Keep your weight at the same level. There's a turn step here. You might need to see it a few times. 1, walk away, and walk away in that 45-degree angle. Walk away in the straight line. It's kind of dangerous, so you're going to move to one side or the other. This concludes part 1 of the Step to Power video. This video was an introduction of how to do the steps and which steps will be used as the root for the next videos. Continue to use this video as a reference, as the later videos will be much more in detail of understanding practices and application. This is the half step drill done using a spear hand, and we move back just to find our space. What you want to do is understand when you move in, where you can move in at. So I have something up there propped up to keep me moving on one side of it clearly. And what I'm doing now is I'm using the elbow. I go from the elbow to the shoulder, and I basically want to feel like my step is leading my strike into my opponent. So you have to make sure that every movement starts with the step. The size of your step changes and varies depending on how much you twist from the hip. So sometimes I can do a step that's almost stationary, and other times I'm basically trying to run through my target. So really, when you're practicing, do this at least 100 times on each side and understand how much space you have on each side with something propped up so you can go around it from one side to the other. And when you're using something hard, don't hit too hard. You don't want to injure yourself. This is just a spacing drill that will help you understand striking. So now, looking for different openings. As I step in, pay attention to where the other hand is. I can do one step in 2 hand motions. I can do one step in 3 hand motions. Every motion must be powered by the step, and the twist will really show you the range of which power is more effective. So sometimes it's the elbow, sometimes it's the shoulder. Now you want to make sure you do certain motions repetitiously, continuously over and over until it becomes like one motion in your mouth. And that's what a combination is, just like boxing or anything. And also, you want to make sure every movement is very ambidextrous, that you can switch sides. You don't want to get stuck doing a move and only being able to do it well on one side. So go back and forth, go front to back. This is all half-step practice right now. This is how you really figure out what is used in different angles. Every angle creates a different shape. Every twist in the hips creates a new attack. And the reason that this practice is so important is that you don't want to start hitting with only your hands. You see that every time the hands can be a good distraction, but when you're going to knock somebody down, you really have to step through them, almost like a sprinter. Right? So think about it more as an attack as like a football tackle instead of just a punch. In addition to practicing your space for striking, it's also very important to practice pulling. Pulling is a key component for Bagua practice. So you want to be able to hold your structure and your footwork. And what I do is I tug on some of those exercise bands. I just put it around the sign. I don't really care who's looking. I got to get good at Kung Fu, right? So I'll just keep pulling and keep your elbow in. And what you do is you pull into your target so you can pull the free hand and strike the face. Pull the free hand, strike at the face. Just creating that habit. Just an easy drill to kind of help you understand how to stay focused and how to stay balanced while you're tugging on somebody. An exercise like plucking, I just pluck the leaves off the tree. I try to pluck just one at a time. This really is just teaching you how to get in and out. It's more about the feet than it is the hands. But use the feet to project the hands. And you can use the back hand, the front hand, you can combine, but try your best to pull only one leaf at a time. Every serious athlete for sports has to use some kind of weaving through obstacles maneuvering, especially for the T-step. If you plan on using it, you have to learn to put your weight on the back and step and turn into a powerful position. So you take, I do a half step and a weaving step. Turn around, half step, and weaving step. Using that T step is crucial practice, right? Just in case you want to land anything, if you need to get out of the way, you have to make sure that this is an easy drill to maneuver danger. Do your best to stay low, and then make sure you do it backwards. Everything should be done backwards, forward, on both legs. If at any point you're feeling discomfort in the knees or in the waist or in the back, that means your posture is incorrect. So make sure you do your adjustments, take your time, and go slow at first before you go fast. Now we're using a spear hand with the zigzag step. Right? We're going back and forth, but a lot of people have a problem. They jam their fingers, and that's because they lose focus. So I'll use a fence or something with different size holes that I can actually penetrate through and work on improving that speed. This way will stop me from having loose hands when I actually use a spear hand in the middle of practicing or combat. Keep weight in the back and launch through off the back foot all the way through the target. One of the best ways to practice your turns and making sure that your hips are squared against your opponent is to find a nice corner. You can take your time. We're going to slow this practice down a little bit. First, put yourself in a position that you can feel where he's at and turn around him from the heel to the toe. Make sure your body moves as one piece. It shouldn't be separated, just as one piece. By keeping my hand against the wall, I'm building up sensitivity, and I'm also making sure I don't drop my guard. There's no advantage in having your hands down. So now I can go from down to up and really just launch my hands as if they're shooting out of a gun. You go upward, downward, keep the elbows in, and now I'm actually going to use my elbow to make contact here. Like I said, when you're working on hard surfaces, no need to hit hard. We have a bag for that, and we'll show you that training in a second. But turn and learn that space. Do this step until it's easy, and you can also get ready to, you can throw a small trip or kick or a stopping movement. Get comfortable with your balance on this turning step. Now multi-stepping is also really good for you to have a corner. During the movement, just as we practiced before, except for it's against a target that has depth. So I'm doing 1, 2, and 3 I step through. 1, 2, 3. Same as before, but now instead of a straight line, I'm moving against a three-dimensional object. And this will really show you where your attacks and your possibilities and openings might be. And you start to speed it up a little bit. Now, it's not the most fun to practice by yourself, but before you go practice with somebody else, you should know what you're doing. Your body should be really familiar so that if something is wrong or something is not aligned correctly, when you go against a person, you'll be able to correct it very quickly. Now we're doing the backwards multi-step. So basically I am turning around, and you see this looks very different against a three-dimensional object. I'll spread my hands here just to kind of show you where that step was. But in actuality, when you're practicing these drills, you want to keep your hands in front against the danger. And so I'm using a turn to stick to my opponent. I'm not losing where he's at, but at the same account, I'm not pushing into him. You should be able to step around very smoothly, very easily. Just as quickly as he can step at you, you should be able to step around him. Now in the video, I'm only going to do, maybe 20 times. But by myself, easily 1,000 times. 1,000 times. Keep your posture, your weight in the back. Move your body as one piece. Here's Bagua stepping. In Bagua, I like to get myself in a hallway and find my space, move to one side, and then to the other side. Why? Because I have to adjust my range. You'll see sometimes I step in the middle, sometimes I step a little closer. You can't just step where you want to step. It doesn't matter what movement you're doing. The technique should be able to shape to the purpose. Now I start to use my hands so I can see how the range changes. So I do ko, then I do Bagua. And look here, I can come from up to down, so I start to move a little bit in elevation, not too much for this video, but just to kind of show you the possibilities. Just make sure, like I said, you're not putting any twist on the knee, it's all on the hips. So your whole body unrolls into the target. Now we're going to combine some steps. We're doing the multi-step forward and the multi-step backwards. And as I said before, all the steps are just one step, so you really got to get comfortable just being able to move non-stop. It's like a boxer, except we're keeping our weight sunk. So we're doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, turn around, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and repeat, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, same thing. Learn that as you get to that third step, your hand is fully extended, whether you're going backwards and forward. And if you plan on using any of the steps, you should be able to easily do them fluently. Otherwise, it's just, you're just going to get yourself in trouble. Here comes my little boy. He sees me practice, he gets excited. Striking is where many of the steps are going to start to make more sense. So lower your weight first, and now we're going to do a half step, just a single palm. Keep the elbow in on the inside, and as I step, I want to make sure I step through. My foot stops, that's where my power stops. So it's important that if you're going to hit something hard, you want to try to step through the target, past the target. Now there's two types of striking. There's one that's more like shoving, where I really just step through him and give him my physical force. And then there's snapping, where I snap more of my power into the target. That's really what you want more. Now keep your shoulders down and always be prepared for a second attack. So keep your elbows in, basically behind the heart, and they roll off your center as you step through the target. And do the same thing going backwards. Like I said, always do the techniques going backwards and forward. Sit down, extend. Make sure every time you attack, it's your foot and not your hand. These are great drills because if you're doing it wrong, your partner will push you back. If you're doing it right, you'll push your partner back. Find somebody who's really not being too friendly with you while you're striking. Now here we're doing the multiple attacks with one half step. So I basically unwind. As my leg is up, my hand goes up, and when it lands, the other hand goes out. Keep your posture correct. Don't try to get too forceful. You see the other leg acts like a trip or a stop if I needed to. You can stop the force first and then strike again. And once you get comfortable, you should really just do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of strikes. Make sure every time it's guided by the step. Legs carry the body carries the hands. So moving forward, backwards, you can double up. You do single strikes. But put yourself past your comfort level. You're also trying to get in shape. When doing the T-step, we're going to use a single palm. And basically we step into place and launch in that direction at a 45-degree angle, keeping the elbow bent. You want to keep it close to the body as you project your force. Take your time at first. There's no hurry. The other hand you'll see is basically swimming past perceived danger. Usually when we do a movement, it's a counter attack. So you want to wait for an opening, and as someone does a low attack, you step out of the way. Here's the same thing going backwards. You'll see he steps to my vulnerable side so I can practice getting out of the way and stepping back. I sink my weight. I want to make sure that I'm not on my toes, I'm not up high. If I do that, then as he comes in at the same time, he's going to push me back instead of me pushing him back. Now we add a little speed. Make sure your steps are clean so you don't put any force on your knee. And this is good practice for both people. You'll see that he has to have footwork just to get in position. So we're both doing Bagua at the same time. Now we're doing the same thing, so we're going to do 2 strikes. So as my hip turns into place, instead of doing a block, I strike twice. This basically creates a pressure point. The zigzag step really has a lot of options. Now I'm using my hand here, my spear hand, just to show you. And if I'm actually going to do that movement, what I'm doing is I'm cutting off his body, I'm extending my hand past his neck. But if I'm going to use it as a strike, or especially effective when used as a block with the elbow, because it carries you right into the target. So as this momentum comes in, you block, strike up right directly to the chin. Make sure that strike is being led by the legs. If you're just touching with your arms, there's really no force and it's going to make you more vulnerable. Going backwards with the zigzag step the same way. Now try to make it go into one motion or one circling motion with the hips. Be careful holding the pads. You'll see it's pretty easy to bump your opponent while you're doing this. Now we're going to use the fist with the zigzag step. Same thing, so I'm basically using the hip to smash into the target and then strike straight through. It's all body, but my hands are just an extension of that motion. So pull and you're coiling into yourself and tightening right before you release. This gives a lot of explosive power and it's very surprising, almost like an uppercut. Remember, all these movements work just as effectively as a block or as a strike. Now with the multi-step, we step to the side first. Then we line up the next foot into a straight line while doing a single palm. And we step forward and do another single palm. This is just one form of practice, but every step is a motion. And in Bagua, that's what makes it unique, is every step is an attack. So if you're not stepping, or even a stationary step, if there's no kind of stepping at all, then you're not really delivering the potential. Now we're going backwards. We go backwards to do it defensively. I put my elbow down, and up, and hands up. I could do it striking, but I think it's important to practice going back and covering yourself. There we go again. Counting 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And stepping back, the same thing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, as we get moving back and forth, by this time, while you're practicing striking, you should be able to move freely. You have to really break out of the shell of just this pattern, because fights never happen in patterns. So you'll see he'll come at me, he'll start to do some surprises, and I'll start to move forward against him. We're just having fun together practicing. But you gotta let him, wail on you. He's got pads right now. So let him take some good shots. You can practice some entry techniques as he comes in. Just kind of closing that gap. How can you get in and stop danger? We'll get more into this later in the videos, but this is important to have this habit. How do you stop them? You see I start using a lot of different footwork here to turn him and carry off his position. It's very important to be fluent in your feet. Now getting into bag work, we're going to start with the half step, but you want to make sure that your body is now feeling like one solid piece. Don't strike with your hands ever. So when you step through the bag and step back. Doing both forward half step and backwards half step practice. Let the bag settle to make sure you can generate the right amount of power every time. Now, I can do it two-handed, I can do it one-handed, I can do it with my fist or my palm or my elbow, depending on what you're going to practice that day. I can do it with my shoulder. Now I'm just going to do the palm and I'm going to go straight through the target, making sure that when it swings back, it swings right into my force. And this will give you an indication whether you're forcing it back or it's forcing you back. Keep your elbows in, make it fly off the back foot. If you feel any discomfort, that means it's not right. Here we're doing alternating palms. Let's start with the lead hand. And this really shows you if you're stepping correctly, because if not, your hand will collapse. If it bends or folds, you don't have the force. Now I'm learning my range here. Close range, and then I can change it from the shoulder to the elbow, to the palm, or to the fist. I can do that on both sides. But now I'm really learning what it feels like to take on force, and to deliver force. It's important to remember too to keep your shoulders down when you're doing the shoulder, otherwise it's going to hurt you more than them. Step through, step in, and now we just alternate sides on one side, doing this kind of pattern to get used to hitting all the time. Transitioning palm, shoulder, palm, elbow, and eventually all of this needs to be free flowing, free movement, without thinking. Now when the bag starts to swing more, it actually helps you a lot to practice stopping a hard target. So here we go again with T-step practice. You're more familiar with this. So now we're just going to catch it as it gives an opportunity. So it moves. It's basically almost like counterattack. You're training your reactions and not just your step alone. But every time you step, bury that palm into that bag deeply. Remember, you're not going for a push, you're going for internal damage. Now here's the zigzag again. Now I'm extending the whole thing now, but I'm extending through the bag. And you'll see it's basically a shoulder strike, but it actually sends your opponent in an awkward angle, especially if you trap his hand first. So now we're doing the backwards zigzag. And you see I try to put a little practice of just stop, then strike. It teaches me how to explode while I'm stepping backwards. It's the important part of this drill. Catch it, stop, strike. And you see at moments, you're almost going to be leaping to change that range. This teaches you the naturalness of different ranges. We do have a leaping step, not in this video, but in later videos for sure. And we're going to double up on a few of these attacks here. Stop, double up. Of course you can double up, you can triple up. Here we're doing Bagua. In a step, it's important that I'm taking my momentum from the outside to the middle. So, and that's the point of Bagua really. It's used for changing direction, but also especially for coming with outside strikes. So it's almost like the hook for a boxer. We open up a little wider. So I step back, and naturally while you're doing these strikes, you'll see that to do it continuously, you're going to have to change your range. You're going to have to know where you're at. So first I do a little block and a strike. Block high, strikes to the mid. Every time I naturally have to know where to stay. As I change strikes, I have to change ranges. And now I do a single palm first. Now I'm combining steps. I do a small half step, then a Bagua. Half step, Bagua. In order to use any of these techniques, you're really going to have to blend your steps together. And make sure your stopping power, keep your elbow in, otherwise it's going to hurt your elbow. Your elbow should be behind the heart, let your hips swing right into that bag. And there's just so many variations you can use in practice. So here we're doing the ko step. The ko, I'm just turning, make sure you turn through it. Right? You want to make sure that when you do a ko step, whatever happens, because when you turn your back, you're in danger, unless you're turning into it with force. But there's variations. I can snap, I can drive through it, or I can move through a moving takedown. Snap is fast, and your back quickly becomes your friend. This is really good for rolling off a punch, almost like a spinning backhand. Now, I'll throw one more strike in here just for extra footwork practice. Now I do a moving back step. It's actually a full step. But a retreating step a lot of times can help you do things in a rhythm, so you can see that you have sunken power in every strike. Now we're doing a Bagua, and we have a ko bu too. So first I step with Bai, and I elbow with the elbow, then a ko, which drives me to the back. Doing a Bai and a ko bu together is how you get behind somebody in one motion. Now we're doing multi-step practice, and you'll see it first. It's always good to feel out your bag first, right? Before you start delivering a lot of power, see that your steps are clean. It's not about hitting, it's about stepping. You're stepping correctly, you're hitting correctly. So I do the same count, the 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2, then in the corner, on the bag, but now I can get a little more free. I'm familiar with the step. And you want to make sure you're familiar with the step, because every motion, every between motion is an opportunity to attack. Switch from elbows, close range, long range. Once you have the multi-step down, the bag is yours. This is the backwards multi-step. It seems complicated when you're doing it in the air. When you start to strike, it makes more and more sense. You're just changing directions on your opponent. That inside elbow, let it touch, it blocks, be sensitive to where he's at. You strike in the end, you strike in the middle. Make every shot count. No touching. This is not tag. If your body's not behind it, you might as well not throw it. It's just going to leave you open. Now we're combining steps here, being a little bit more free in our motion. Half steps, doubling with strikes, retreating steps. All the motions. If you can't do it free, if you can't do it without thinking about it, then you really can't do it. I'm doing my best to stay within the steps that we've done in the video. There are more steps that are coming. All of those will only add to your arsenal of movement. Bag work is really just research. So you're researching everything to test the theories, try things out. It's like a scientist. See what works, and when you start hitting, it makes more sense. And then, of course, you have to find a partner. First, we're going to work with the half step and your partner's just throwing a jab, make sure it can touch you first. Always check that before you practice. Now as he punches, as he extends, I'm just going to take a small step out of range and back in range. This is just kind of creating an option as his hand goes back. As his hand goes back, my hand goes in. It's important to practice against punches that are both snapped and sometimes that are left out there. You'll actually see both of them in reality. But right now with a two-person, you're really just developing timing. Timing is key for combat. This is a possession step. This means I'm going at him as he's moving at me. I'm gaining possession of his movement. Now I can swirl around, and now basically he's acting like a human wooden dummy. So I can see where I have room to come in. I can squeeze on this side here. Where's his weight? Where's my weight? This is the important part to research before you start sparring. And this movement happens almost at the same time. For it to really happen, it's almost simultaneously. You don't even see the back step. But it's there. Check all the sides and make sure you can check all the ranges that we practiced earlier. The elbows, the palms, the shoulders. All of them will have different effects. So I like to slow things down here. Looking at it again, make sure you're not missing any. Now you'll see I'm opening them up and I'm just practicing different possibilities with this half step. This is all only half step motion. Let it in and I go into hip. So basically with my hips, I create a circle. And now you see I'm trapping his hand as it goes back. As it goes back, I trap and I have my strike. The elbow, the palm. But when they go back, that is a great chance to take advantage. So learn that timing. This is the code step, called the deflecting step, because you're actually deflecting their attack as you're stepping in. I'll show you on the other side here. Strikes. And now I do this gradually. So first when it's baby steps. Sometimes you can only do a portion, and then you can do it farther and farther. The better you are, the better your timing is. But you're not going to get 100% success on every movement. So practice halves, and quarters, and fractions of movements as well. And this is like the bag, we go from one side to the other. That's 100% success. That may not always happen. But make sure you're sensitive enough to respond appropriately. The arm bar from the back. Same thing, using this deflection step. So first I let him in just enough so I can get in. There's the arm break again. You step halfway and you have the elbow strike as well. Now, this is what I call a chasing trap. Sometimes you're going to be late. See that? How I come in with the deflecting step and he pulls it back too fast. It doesn't mean that he's not opening anymore. There's still an opening there. And so you want to pay attention for that. If you miss a move, you can't stop fighting. You got to keep going. It's all connected. It's all circle. It's all basically a strategy. So if you are late, trap the hand on the inside. And if you're late on that trap, there's another movement you can do. But there's always another flowing motion. And here I'm basically using my weight to pin him back. Now we're working with two movements. So basically I'm doing two small half steps, three small half steps. You want all of these, and I'll tell you, this is my brother. And yes, he does hit me a lot. It happens. If we're practicing, he's not trying to hurt me, but he is trying to hit me. And we do hit each other a lot, and usually it ends at that. But you do need a partner who's trying to touch you, but you don't want to hurt each other. Save that for the bad guy. Now I'm working with the same chasing trap. There we go. I call this a swarming hive. This is the multi-step. You see why I call it swarming hive in a second. But as I step, I basically drop his weight to the side. You see all these options here. So this is the first part, 1. And if I take the second step, it's the 2. So 1, and watch what happens. When he brings that back, that's where the 2 comes in. So I chase him as he's drawing back, and now I can go into my 3. So this is how the multi-step works against a target, right? 1, 2. Now I can do the trap, the strike, but basically cutting him off that angle. This is why we call it a zigzag step. You're going one direction, then the next. Now it also works for great against a second attack. So I block, then a second attack comes in. And since my weight is moving with my legs, I'm going to be able to step through that. If I was only using my hands, it would be worthless. So practice the steps and get them clean. And once you do that, you'll see that you open them up. Just react now. Don't think about it. Just like on bag practice. Deliver what comes in. Check your ranges. Is it elbows? That's why I call this one, the next one is the bursting step. Still the multi-step. Watch close. You explode. Lots of movements, variations of movements, all into the targets. The open points. It goes in, and you burst into them. This is the blinding step. And we're going to do this one slow because it's kind of dangerous. You're doing backwards stepping here, the multi-step backwards. But as he comes in with the next motion, right here, you're going to go for the eyes. So it's a spear hand backwards, right for the eyes. Sometimes you got to take a blinding step. It depends on who you're fighting. On the other side so you can see it. And I can just pin the throat too. It doesn't actually have to be that, lethal of a strike if you don't need it to be. You see at least openings. A little bit more of the burst on the inside. So right now he's basically my human dummy, like I said. And this is great stepping practice. Make sure everything is your step. Now I'm going free. He doesn't tell me what he's going to do, but I still just respond. You'll see sometimes when I come in, I don't get off the movement, but follow through until you get something. Never leave empty-handed, as my master said. Learning the range, the timing. So you see, I just split him with a step. It's not even an attack. And that's how effective stepping is. If you don't have stepping, you don't have anything. You see how I stay close to him, so even when I don't know what's happening next, I can smother the next possible attack. And you should take shots. You will take shots if you don't know what's happening. That's part of the game. Don't be so proud. This is Kung Fu, and you're supposed to get hit.